Picture this. You're Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, sitting in your tent during a brutal military campaign. The weight of an empire rests on your shoulders, yet you maintain perfect emotional equilibrium. What separated him from those who crumbled under pressure? Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of emotional stability through the lens of both ancient wisdom and modern psychology. We'll explore 10 telltale signs that might indicate emotional turbulence, not to judge, but to understand and grow. Think of this as your personal reconnaissance mission into the landscape of human emotions. Armed with insights from Stoic philosophers, psychological research, and yes, even some epic fantasy metaphors that would make Gandalf proud. Sign number 1. The emotional roller coaster. Imagine your emotions as a medieval siege engine. Sometimes it's a precise crossbow, other times it's a wildly swinging catapult. If your emotional responses swing from ecstatic joy to crushing despair faster than a Game of Thrones plot twist, this might be your first clue. Research shows that emotionally stable individuals experience what psychologists call emotional regulation. It's like having an internal thermostat for your feelings. The Stoics called this ataraxia, a state of serene calmness. When Epictetus was enslaved and physically challenged, he didn't let external circumstances dictate his internal weather. Here's the key distinction. Feeling emotions intensely isn't the problem. It's the rapid, unpredictable shifts that signal potential instability. Sign number 2, the overreaction protocol. Picture a dragon responding to a paper cut by burning down an entire village. That's what emotional overreaction looks like in human form. When someone bumps into you accidentally and you react as if they've challenged you to single combat, that's your brain's threat detection system working overtime. Neuroscientists call this amygdala hijack, when your emotional brain takes the wheel before your rational mind can even fasten its seatbelt. The ancient Stoics had a brilliant technique called the view from above. They would imagine themselves as cosmic observers, watching their problems from the perspective of the stars. Suddenly, that parking ticket doesn't seem worth declaring war over. Modern research supports this. People with higher emotional stability show greater activity in their prefrontal cortex, the brain's CEO, during stressful situations. Sign number 3, the blame-shifting syndrome. Here's where things get psychologically fascinating. Imagine if Frodo blamed the ring for all his problems, never acknowledging his own choices in the journey to Mordor. External locus of control is the psychological term for constantly attributing your emotional state to outside forces. My boss makes me angry. Traffic ruins my day. My phone died and destroyed my mood. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Research from Stanford University shows that people who take responsibility for their emotional responses recover from setbacks 40% faster than those who consistently blame external factors. It's like having emotional superpowers, but with actual scientific backing. Sign number 4, the relationship tornado. Think of relationships as delicate ecosystems. If you're the emotional equivalent of a natural disaster sweeping through these ecosystems, leaving confusion and hurt in your wake, this might be a significant indicator. Unstable emotional patterns often manifest as inconsistent relationship behaviors. One day, you're the most supportive friend in Middle-earth. The next, you're ghosting people faster than Casper on caffeine. Attachment theory, developed by John Bowlby, explains this beautifully. Secure attachment styles correlate directly with emotional stability, while anxious or avoidant patterns often signal underlying emotional turbulence. The Stoics understood this too. Seneca wrote extensively about friendship and consistency in character. He believed that true friendship required emotional reliability, being the same person your friends could count on, whether in triumph or crisis. Sign number 5, the decision paralysis matrix. Imagine Hamlet, but instead of to be or not to be, it's should I have coffee or tea? And this existential crisis lasts for 3 hours. Emotional instability often manifests as decision-making chaos. Your emotional state becomes the primary lens through which you view choices, making even simple decisions feel monumentally important. Neuroscience research shows that emotionally stable individuals have better communication between their emotional centers and decision-making regions. It's like having a well-functioning parliament in your brain instead of a bunch of arguing factions. The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, imagining potential outcomes before making decisions. This wasn't pessimism, it was emotional preparation that led to clearer, more stable choices. Barry Schwartz's research on choice overload reveals that people with emotional regulation skills make decisions 60% faster and report 70% higher satisfaction with their choices. Sign number 6, the sleep and energy chaos. Your sleep patterns tell a story more revealing than any fantasy novel. If your sleep schedule looks like it was designed by a caffeinated wizard with attention issues, your emotions might be running the show. Emotional instability and sleep disruption create a vicious cycle. Poor emotional regulation leads to racing thoughts, anxiety, and irregular sleep. Poor sleep then impairs emotional regulation the next day. Studies from Harvard Medical School show that sleep-deprived individuals have 60% more activity in their amygdala, the brain's alarm system. Essentially, lack of sleep turns your brain into a hyper-vigilant security guard who thinks everything is a threat. The ancient Stoics were big on routine and discipline. Marcus Aurelius had structured daily practices that supported both mental clarity and emotional stability. Modern sleep research validates this ancient wisdom beautifully. Sign number 7, the stress response overload. Picture your stress response as a car alarm. In emotionally stable people, it goes off when someone actually tries to steal the car. In emotional instability, it triggers when a leaf lands on the windshield. Chronic stress activation is like keeping your body in permanent dragon attack mode. Your cortisol levels stay elevated, your heart rate increases, and your immune system starts treating normal life events as existential threats. Research from the American Psychological Association shows that people with poor emotional regulation have cortisol patterns similar to those experiencing genuine trauma. Their bodies literally can't tell the difference between a deadline and a saber-toothed tiger. The Stoics developed specific techniques for this. Epictetus taught the dichotomy of control. clearly separating what you can and cannot influence. This single mental framework can reduce stress hormones by up to 25%, according to recent psychological studies. Sign number 8. The self-worth roller coaster. If your self-esteem fluctuates more than cryptocurrency prices, this is a significant emotional stability indicator. One compliment sends you soaring like a dragon rider. One criticism crashes you harder than Icarus. Psychologists call this contingent self-worth, when your value as a person depends entirely on external validation or recent events. It's exhausting for both you and everyone around you. The Stoics had a revolutionary approach to this. They built self-worth on virtue and character, things that remained constant regardless of external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius never let military victories or defeats define his fundamental worth as a person. Research from Stanford's psychology department shows that people with stable self-worth recover from failures 200% faster and maintain more consistent performance under pressure. It's like having emotional armor that actual events can't penetrate. Sign number 9. The impulse control malfunction. Imagine if Gandalf cast every spell that popped into his head without thinking about consequences. Middle-earth would be chaos, and that's essentially what poor impulse control does to your life. Emotional instability often manifests as acting on every feeling immediately. Angry, send that text. Sad, make dramatic life changes. Excited, max out your credit card. The marshmallow test, that famous Stanford study, showed that children who could delay gratification had better life outcomes decades later. The same principle applies to emotional impulses in adults. Neuroscience reveals that impulse control involves communication between your prefrontal cortex and limbic system. When emotions are unstable, this communication breaks down like a medieval messenger getting lost in a storm. The Stoics practiced what they called the discipline of desire. Before acting on any impulse, they would pause and ask, is this action aligned with my values and long-term well-being? Sign number 10. The growth resistance pattern. Here's the most subtle, but perhaps most telling sign: resistance to emotional growth and self-reflection. If the idea of examining your emotional patterns feels more terrifying than facing a dragon, this itself is significant information. Emotionally stable people view challenges and feedback as growth opportunities. They have what psychologist Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset, specifically applied to emotional development. The ancient Stoics were obsessed with self-improvement. Seneca wrote daily letters examining his thoughts and behaviors. Marcus Aurelius kept detailed journals of his emotional and philosophical development. Research shows that people who actively work on emotional regulation show measurable brain changes in as little as 8 weeks. Your brain's neuroplasticity means emotional stability isn't fixed. It's trainable, like any other skill. Here's what makes this journey fascinating. Recognizing these signs isn't about judgment or self-criticism. It's about awareness, which is the first step toward any meaningful change. The Stoics understood something profound. You can't control your initial emotional reactions, but you absolutely can influence what happens next. Modern neuroscience proves they were right. If you recognize yourself in several of these signs, congratulations. Seriously, self-awareness is actually a marker of higher emotional intelligence, not lower. The path forward involves patience, practice, and probably a good sense of humor about your own humanity. After all, even Marcus Aurelius had to remind himself daily to practice emotional regulation. Remember, emotional stability isn't about becoming an emotionless robot. It's about becoming the wise ruler of your own inner kingdom, making decisions from a place of strength rather than reactive chaos. Your emotions are valid, your journey is valuable, and your capacity for growth is far greater than you might imagine. The ancient philosophers knew this. Modern science confirms it. And now you know it too.